Fun times in perspective.
Of course, nobody fucking read the Infinity Watch. I certainly don't have a whole bunch of issues stashed away in my closet that I got for like $1 a piece. What are you talking about?
Be fair, getting comics here in France is a bit harder than in the US.
It can't be as hard as it was getting them in my rural town in the 80s.
I mean, I don't think you could get the originals anymore, like, because of how many versions there were. Like, even if I'm not even sure they're being republished. So, yeah.
That is
You got a
the
crown.
Hat of Kings.
You got a crown.
And it's cost us Ivan to get it.
Alas, poor Ivan. We knew ye.
I don't like that. I don't like the look of the gun that guy's holding.
Oh, the rifle.
Yeah, it's just a gun. Nothing bad about it. Ow.
Oh no! Oh no!
Sounds like trouble.
Yeah.
See, I see the thumper and I think of something different. Sarab
Yeah,
might be thinking
yeah,
about it.
yeah. Slightly disappointing in that variant, though.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should have brought Valentine. Oh, hail to the king, baby.
I feel like I'd be terrified if like a robot was trying to rob me and it was wearing a crown.
One moment. I'm done.
I mean, it's good there is no permadeath.
Yeah. Oh, one more. What are you?
If only you hadn't lost Ivan.
Oh. It's a challenge, but let's give it a go. You know what? You're in the better hat. Now you're royalty.
Hail to the king, baby.
Oh. Them. They're fun. Do you know why they're fun?
That one looks like he might explode.
Yeah.
No.
Does kind of preclude you from getting their hats, though.
Yep.
I don't like this layout right here.
Oh yes, since we were speaking of well, talking about Marvel real quick, have you guys seen Love and Thunder yet?
I have, when, actually, we went to a really great movie theater to see that, and they actually had, Thor-themed beer there, believe it or not.
Oh,
I had fun at that movie. I wouldn't say it was brilliant, but I enjoyed it.
I personally preferred it to Ragnarok because Ragnarok just felt super out of place, even though Loki had a lot more spotlight. Yes, I love Loki.
Everybody loves Loki.
He's great.
Mm-hmm.
Just Tom Hiddleston, hello.
Yep.
But yeah, I still preferred Love and Thunder to Ragnarok. I feel like that was what it in both cases. Right?
Yeah, it was.
I feel like he improved between the two.
He definitely doubled down on the silly, like
There's still a bit of silly, but that makes sense and that doesn't take away from what the movie's trying to say, you know?
yeah.
So yeah, I liked it a bit more, though Thor felt too much Thor. Like, I don't know how to explain.
I have the problem with
It's
the MCU at the moment. It's a case of, unless it really stands out like Spider-Man Far From Home, or well, I gave I think it's the Ten Rings, whatever that one's called, a chance.
oh, Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi. It's a case of, I basically possibly want to do a video on this, just get into more real details of it. Is that Infinity War and Endgame just did the dirty and burnt me out on the series. That's the case of it's just gone too big. And as put in the interview, so it's done.
Yeah, and with all the series that they're putting out there on top of it, yeah.
It's these films are only there to be watched once, and that's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're just done to be throwaway. Plus, their animation budget is rushed and not done well. But they're trying to do their best, but it's limited for what I can do.
Yeah, and you know, Shang-Chi, I actually watched it twice, like the first time at the theater and then the second time with my family a couple days ago.
Mhm.
And, you know, after seeing it for the first time, it really feels like mediocre, but in the sense that it's, you know, typical Marvel.
Yeah.
See, I've only seen about 2/3 of Shang-Chi because I watched it on an airplane and my flight landed before it finished. The thing I liked about Shang-Chi, so a lot of the Marvel stuff that's come out lately, hell, not even lately, like since Avengers 2, let's say.
But let's say post Wave 2.
Yeah, it feels like you have to watch like 50 things to know what's going on. Which, like, I get it, they're making an entire universe, and that's fine, but it's like, I have to rewatch 57 movies and 5 TV series, what the hell's going on? Shang-Chi, you can watch by itself. You don't have to know anything about the other Marvel movies.
Technically,
You can
one point.
Really just the end scene or where you'd be like, wait, who the fuck are those guys?
Yeah.
And this reference to what Thanos did. I refuse to call it what they're calling it in the movies. Because for starters, I call it a click of the fingers. Not a snap. That's an advice I probably would snap my fingers. Ow.
It also doesn't help the ongoing Marvel Cinematic Universe that, like, for a decade, they had this coherent plot thread that they were building up to, the Infinity Gauntlet. The storylines of all of the movies were loosely tying into that. Sure, they had their own things going on, but they were building up to that. We get to that. That is done. And it's like, okay, the storyline had a beginning, middle, and end. We are taking your hat, you son of a bitch. And like that storyline ended, and the movies are still going, and it kind of just feels like they're flailing around directionless. If that makes any sense. Oh, excuse me for a minute.
I burned out on the Marvel stuff a couple years ago.
Yeah, at some point I just started doing a marathon, burnt out on the middle of Civil War, then came back to it. And yeah, most of the stuff that's gone out past Endgame, the only two that I think worth watching, and I'm probably biased at this point, are WandaVision and Loki. Because WandaVision is really just focused on what became of Wanda after Infinity War, like how she's coping with it and stuff, which I really like. And Loki is just... that's my personal preference, again, because I love the character. But it also goes into something that I like a bit, which is a theory of the multiverse.
Did the turret just kill its own engineer?
Yes.
Just checking.
It denied us the hat. Oh. Oh no.
Wow, how did both of those miss?
Good question.
Stormtrooper aim.
Ah. Swag. More swag, more experience.
Nom.
He's back.
Yeah, but part of the whole problem with the MCU for me was that one of the groups I was the biggest fan of was a group that they couldn't get in there because freaking Sony had the licensing for it. So they never got to be a part of it. Now they're going to have to stitch them in very clumsily, and it's going to hurt a whole lot to look at.
That sounds like it's either going to be the X-Men or Fantastic Four.
X-Men.
Yeah, I think it was the X-Men. Like, you were starting to see them with Deadpool. Very clumsily.
Only the X-Men that they didn't have the licenses for originally. Which, granted, don't get me wrong, my favorite X-Men is Colossus, so that was amazing.
You can do much worse than Colossus. Colossus is pretty great.
It's the fact that no matter what Deadpool does, he never got mad at Deadpool, he was just highly disappointed.
Yeah, I'm not mad, I'm just... It's also funny to me how much the, essentially the face of Marvel has changed in the past decade and a half, I remember growing up, like, the big things that were, like, the big faces of Marvel were Spider-Man, the X-Men, and, to an extent, the Fantastic Four. Like, those were the things that sold, those were the things that were popular. And because those were the popular ones, when Marvel was going bankrupt in the mid-90s, those were the movie rights that other studios immediately bought. No-brainer. If we're gonna make a movie of something, let's make something out of the popular ones. So we got the Fox X-Men movies, the Sony Spider-Man movies.
Which were great, actually.
Yeah. But once, like, the MCU started taking off, like Iron Man, for example. I remember when the Iron Man movie first came out, I was like, oh wow, I can't believe they're making Iron Man. He's a B-lister, but he's a solid B-lister, and I always loved Iron Man as a kid, because robots, right? So, like, Iron Man came out and ended up being mega popular, and as a result, like, the Avengers went from being, like, the team of solid B-listers within Marvel Comics to being the face of the company, while Marvel made a point of devoting less marketing and less power to the X-Men, just because somebody else owns those movie rights, and the movies are where we're making the most money, so... Like, if you told me 15 years ago that, like, Ant-Man was getting a movie, I would have been like, are you high?
I mean, to this point, I still really don't see what Ant-Man brings to the MCU, but...
A lot of problematic stories, for one.
I mean, sure, it brings...
Hank Pym only beat his wife the one time, damn it.
It just brings a whole lot of quantum physics shenanigans.
That's a sentence I've said now.
Sandman did they bring to the MCU? The second one. The more interesting one with who only got in trouble for doing the right thing.
Yeah, not the one that racked up domestic abuse charges.
I actually have an acquaintance who worked on the second Ant-Man movie, and one of the things he was when I was talking to him about it, when they were in the process of writing the movie, they were like, God damn, a lot of these Marvel Cinematic Universes movies are getting dark, and, like, we keep killing off the villains, and, you know, I kind of want to watch these with my kid, or at least try to. So for Ant-Man 2, they made a deliberate point of, in that movie, everybody lives! Except for the post-credits scene, but we don't need to talk about that.
That was the snap. That is not technically a death.
Yep.
Seeing as they all come back 5 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I said it before, guys, just wanted to do a video on this is how the MCU could have been so much better.
It's always been the one thing that irked me, like in I think that was the beginning of Endgame, when you have this whole cinematic plan to show you it's been 5 years, and, like, I don't know, 5 years after half of the population was wiped out?
Yeah.
It felt like the entire world was doing pretty okay, which made little sense to me.
Yeah.